Evaluate expressions involving subtraction and addition. Okay, so we have been doing subtraction separately, we have been doing addition separately. Now we can have expressions that will involve repeated subtraction or a combination of subtraction and addition. Okay, to evaluate them, we will use the order of operations. So let's start with our first example. So our example states for us to evaluate, we will say -5 minus -7, okay, minus it was -15. Okay, so this expression, this is an expression that involves subtractions. So here we have subtraction and subtraction. Notice here, this first subtraction, this second subtraction. This with the 7 is not subtraction, that's a minus and a negative sign. We'll write each subtraction as addition of the opposite, keyword here, as addition of the opposite, and then evaluate the expression using the order of operation rule. Why? Because it is easier to make an error when subtracting signed numbers. We will probably be more accurate if we write each subtraction as addition of the opposite. That is the keyword here. So our solution now. We will apply the rule for a subtraction twice and then perform the additions, working from left to your right. Okay, so let's start from left to right. Let me bring down the equals here so we can see our working out. So we go and we start with these two, -5 minus -7. So we write as this -5 plus 7, okay, plus -15. So notice what we did here, we added as its opposite. Okay, then we look at -5 and +7, adding two integers with different signs. We go and we end up with 2. Give the sign of the largest value and subtract the smallest from the largest, then plus -15. So here now, working from left to right, we will add, okay, we end up with -13. So let us go over these steps here. The first step here is to add the opposite because it's a minus negative, so add the opposite. Add the opposite here, so plus -15. Okay, and then what we did is work from our left to right by adding -5 plus 7 using the rule for adding integers that have different signs. Then use the rule for adding integers that have different signs again, and we end up with this -13. So that's how we got this solution. So remember, change it to its opposite sign, add it, and we end up with that solution there. It's not that difficult. Let me give a next example now. Evaluate and -90 minus -3 minus 20. Okay, we'll consider the subtraction within the parentheses first. Remember, parentheses first, and we write it as addition of the opposite. By the order of operation rule, we must perform all calculations within parentheses. So this is what we need to work with. Despite we always say go from left to right, we go with whatever is in parentheses. So if this parenthesis was at the front, we work with that piece first. Okay, so let's start. Our first step will be that we bring down this value -90, and we are going to write minus parentheses, and write that integer negative plus the -20. Okay, add the opposite, which we did here. Okay, so this is what we're doing. We're adding the opposite. Remember, adding the opposite here. Okay, so our next step goes -90 minus and since we are adding negative 3 plus negative 20, we end up with negative 23. Now within the brackets, that's what we work first, and then we end up with this. Now add the opposite of negative 23. So when we add the opposite, because we have a minus here, remember these are minus the negative, so we end up with equals negative 90 plus 23. That now gives us, well, use the rule for adding integers that have different signs, and we end up with negative 67. Okay, that's all you need to be doing. Just remember, keep the rules, go piece by piece, go section by section. If you have parentheses, you work with parentheses first. Don't be jumping all over the place. Work in brackets, work that piece. Add its opposite, so that's what I did, and we end up with this piece here. Let us do our next example. Evaluate. I put here negative 5 plus negative 10 minus 6 minus negative 20. Okay, this expression here may seem complicated, but it's not. Let's take it piece by piece. This expression now involves addition. You notice one addition here and two subtraction. Not to say you will always get the one addition, two subtraction. It can be two subtraction and then one addition. The order is irrelevant. We'll use each subtraction as addition of the opposite and then evaluate the expression. Why? Because it is easier to make an error when subtracting sign numbers. We will probably be more accurate if we write each subtraction as addition of the opposite. So our solution to this, we'll apply the rule for subtraction twice. Here. Then we will add the positives and the negatives separately and add these results. Okay, that is by the commutative and the associative property of addition, as we have done before, and we can add the integers in any order. All right. Okay, so our first step, these negatives here, notice simplify negative minus negative 5, this will give us 5, and add the opposite. Okay, so we'll add the opposite. So here now we come down some more and we put plus the negative 10. We'll add the opposite here. We put plus, open bracket, negative 6, and we put plus, well, in this case a negative and then minus will make it a positive, so you get that positive there value. Okay, so we're at this point now. So now what can we say? Well, you can work from left to right, or you can group all positive together and all negatives together. It's much easier, less chance of making mistakes. So let's rearrange them. So we end up with 5 plus the 20 plus the negative 10. Okay, and we put a big bracket, plus the negative 6, we put a small bracket, close big bracket. Okay, because we are grouping the negatives and positives together. So the reordering of the integers will help us. Then group the positives together and the negatives together. That's what we did. So now add the positives within the parentheses, right? Which will be this one, these two here. So let's put these two in parentheses and we add these two, so we don't confuse them with these next ones here. So we say 5 plus 20, that gives us 25. And here now, notice that we have two like signs. So we keep the like sign and we put plus negative 60. Now, isn't this now the addition of two integers with different signs? Yes. So go ahead and we work this out, and we end up here 9 as our solution. 25 plus negative 16 gives a value of 9.